I'll call this meeting of the City Council to order this evening at 6 p.m., Tuesday, May the 23rd, 2017. Please make sure that your cell phones are in the opposition. We will begin this evening with an invocation offered by Councilmember George BAROODY, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Chief Knight. You may stand if you wish.
Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us all here safely and to do the city's business, and please help us to have an understanding that the decisions we make here are important to each one of us individually, but more so important to those citizens we serve. Help us to have the guidance and wisdom to be good stewards of the wealth of resources, human and otherwise, that you've blessed this community with, as well as giving us the wisdom to be good stewards of the faith that has been placed in us up here by those same citizens we serve. Last, if you always give a constant protection over those who, men and women who help serve and protect us in this community. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Item number 1 is announcements of community interest. Ms. Berry.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. First tonight, Governor Greg Abbott has declared this week Flood Awareness Week. Each year, more deaths occur due to flooding more than any other thunderstorm-related hazard. And Central Texas, often referred to as Flash Flood Alley, has been identified as the most flash flood-prone area in the United States by the National Weather Service. The City of Kerrville would like to encourage all residents to be flood aware and take proper precautions in the event of flash flooding, and most importantly, to turn around, don't drown. For additional information about Flood Awareness Week and precautions you can take in the event of flooding, please visit the city's website, kerrvilletx.gov. The Kerrville Festival of the Arts will be taking place in downtown Kerrville this weekend, starting on Friday, May 26th at 6 o'clock a.m. Water Street between Highway 16 and Washington Street, and Earl Garrett Street between Highway 27 and Water Street will be closed to all through traffic. Please plan to use alternate routes during this time. More details about this road closure are available on the city's website, kerrvilletx.gov. The Olympic pool will officially open for the summer season this Saturday, May 27th. Admission is only $1 for anyone over the age of 4. The pool will be open regularly every Tuesday through Sunday from noon to 6 p.m. There are also still a few openings for swim lessons if anyone is interested. For more information or to register for those, please visit kerrvilletx.gov. The first movie in the park of the summer will also be shown this Saturday, May 27th at Kerrville Shriner Park. The movie, Finding Dory, is sponsored by the Bosworth Company and will begin at approximately 9 p.m. Bring the family, chairs, blankets, insect repellent, and flashlights for an outdoor evening at the movies. Entrance to both the movie and park is free. The Butt Holdsworth Memorial Library is also ready to celebrate summer with its annual Summer Reading Club. Registration starts next Thursday, June 1st at the library and will conclude on Friday, July 28th. More details about registration and scheduled summer activities can be found on the city's website. The City of Kerrville is still accepting applications for individuals interested in serving on the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council during the next school year. This program provides an overview of municipal government, empowers youth to become active members in their community, and encourages each member to have an everlasting effect on the future of the city. The Mayor's Youth Advisory Council is composed of 15 regular members and 3 alternates. Regular meetings are held on the second Thursday of every month at 4:30 p.m. Applicants must be Kirk County residents and be enrolled in grades 9 through 12 for the 2017-2018 school year. For more information about applying, please visit kerrvilletx.gov. And finally tonight, the City of Kerrville municipal offices and the Butt Holdsworth Memorial Library will be closed next Monday, May 29th, in observance of the Memorial Day holiday. All city parks and facilities will remain open on Memorial Day, including the Parks and Recreation office at Kerrville Shriner Park. We would like to wish everyone a very safe and happy Memorial Day weekend, and municipal offices and the library will resume normal business on Tuesday, May 30th.
Thank you very much. Any other announcements from council? I do want to say that I did check today, and Mr. Andrew got through his surgery well and seems to be on the road to recovery from what I understand. Any other announcements from the audience, perhaps? If not, we'll move on to item 2A, which is resolutions of commendation for serving on the Food Service Advisory Board. Do we have these present tonight? If you would, please come and stand with me. Rebecca Dittmar, Darrell Young, and Abel Vasquez. I believe he wasn't able to be reached.
That's all right, the best is here.
You'll accept for all of them. This is a resolution of commendation, whereas Darrell Young has served as a member of the Food Service Advisory Board with the date of service beginning shortly after he was born? No. December the 11th, 2012. And whereas Darrell Young has served faithfully and dutifully on said board, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Kerrville, Kerr County, Texas, that Darrell Young be recognized for outstanding service as a member of the Food Service Advisory Board, and that on behalf of the citizens of Kerrville, as well as for ourselves individually, we wish to express our sincere appreciation for contributions to the city and to the community. Please join me in thanking Darrell Young for his service. Item number 2B is resolutions of commendation to Ed Wallace and Bill Muse for serving on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Did just you make it, Mr. Muse?
No.
Oh, there he is in the back row. If you gentlemen would join me, please.
Almost didn't make it, my wife reminded me.
Good for her. I should have had a special one for her, too. So, whereas these two gentlemen, Bill Muse on the far left and Ed Wallace, have served as members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with the date of service for Mr. Muse beginning November the 30th, 2011. You were born and raised with us. And Mr. Wallace on November the 30th, also 2011. And because these gentlemen have served faithfully and dutifully on said board, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Kerrville, Kerr County, Texas, that these gentlemen, Bill Muse and Ed Wallace, be recognized for outstanding service as members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and that on behalf of the citizens of Kerrville, as well as for ourselves individually, we wish to express our sincere appreciation for contributions to the city and the community, and to your wife for getting you here. This 23rd day of May 2017. Please join me in thanking these gentlemen. And for Bill. You certainly have worn a lot of hats, and we sure appreciate that too. Thank you so much for coming. Item number 2C is resolutions of commendation for the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. And as I call your name, these should be perhaps in alphabetical order. I will ask for you to come and stand to my right as I call your name, and we'll do congratulations at the end. These, by the way, have served as council members on the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council for the last year. It's been our first year, as most of you know. It was a wonderful year. We had a great presentation, I feel like. And I'm asking you now to join me in thanking them for their service. Please come forward. Mary Margaret Burniston. Where's kids when you need them? Christian Cook. Lexi Cooper. You can hold these.
Yeah. And Lexi Cooper.
Yeah.
Oh, you need him to read from. I
Yeah.
see.
Okay, and Kianna Deo. Did we have the wrong dates on these? Bailey Dulas, she was an alternate. How about anybody that served on the council? Would you just come and stand? Naomi Exum? No? Do we have just two of you this evening? I think so. All right, well, no wonder you're getting a special award.
And if we could speed it up, because I could use Roman at the baseball fields umpiring this evening. A short one.
I'll just read all the names to you, and then we'll make the presentations. Those that served this year: Mary Margaret Burniston, Christian Cook, Lexi Cooper, Kianna Deo, Bailey Dulas, Naomi Exum, Shelby Freeman, Roman Garcia, Sydney Garcia, William Guerriero, Nicole Lorange, Mason Olmsted, Lydia Prislovsky, Ileana Scaccia, Emma Soth, and Ryan Stanton. So we want to thank you this evening. This is Roman Garcia on my left. This is Lydia Prislovsky standing. You can tell the difference, I'm sure. Because these two have served as members of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council with their date of service beginning August the 12th, 2016. And whereas these have served faithfully and dutifully on said board, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Kerrville, Kirk County, Texas, that Roman Garcia and Lydia Prislovsky be recognized for outstanding service as members of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, and on behalf of the citizens of Kerrville, as well as for ourselves individually, we wish to express our sincere appreciation for contributions to the city and to the community passed and approved this 23rd day of May 2017. And before I present these, I would like to make a special word of honor. I do want to thank both of these for putting together the PowerPoint that was presented to us a couple of months ago. You guys did an excellent job, and it was a beautiful overview of what I think we accomplished this last year. In addition to that, Ms. Prislovsky was presented because of the wonderful recommendation I think I wrote as mayor, the Billy Michael Student Leadership Award for Texas from the National World War II Museum. She will be traveling to New Orleans in June, and from there she went even further and was awarded the Normandy Leadership Academy Scholarship, which is a fully paid trip to study in France with the National World War II Museum. So our special congratulations to her as well. Thank both of you. Appreciate your service this year. Item number 2D is recognition of city employee Joe Alvarez on his retirement after 42 years of service to the city of Kerrville. Mr. McDaniel.
Thank you, Mayor. So I understand that Joe is the longest tenured employee ever. And we want to talk a little bit about Joe. He's a very humble gentleman, but he has done tremendous work for us. And Joe, will you join me up here, please? So Joe came to work for us on May 1st, 1975. And he's worked under 9 city managers, and I understand that's only counting Don Davis once. So we could add a few more to that. He says his biggest change over that time has been going from points and condensers to technology. He began with a staff of 4, and I like this the best, Joe, is that you still have a staff of 4. While the fleet, in terms of the number of vehicles and equipment, has tripled. So he runs a great, tight ship and a really good operation. He plans on catching up on his honey-do list. Is that right, Rosa? And traveling to visit with family. And with him today are his family, Rosa, his wife. Rosa, why don't you join us up here, please? And daughters, Joanne, Mary Lou, Cynthia, and Martha. And if you're here, please come on up as well. So with that, Joe, we want to present this to you and thanking you for your dedicated service. I understand we have a nice reception coming up later, either this week or the following week. So we just really thank you for your service.
like a day over 20. Joe.
Thank you very much.
Okay, items number 3A, B, and C are listed on the consent agenda. Do any members of council wish to have any of these items removed for discussion? If not, I will ask for approval of items number 3A, 3B, and 3C.
So moved.
We have a motion and we have a second. All approved, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 4A is ordinance number 2017-13, approving a negotiated settlement between the Atmos City Steering Committee and Atmos Energy Group Mid-Tex Division regarding the company's 2017 rate review mechanism filings, declaring existing rates to be unreasonable, adopting tariffs that reflect rate adjustments consistent with a negotiated settlement, finding the rates to be set by the settlement tariffs to be just and reasonable and in the public interest, requiring reconciliation and rate adjustments if federal income tax rate changes, terminating the RRM process for 2018 pending negotiation of RRM terms and conditions, requiring the company to reimburse ACSC's reasonable rate-making expenses, determining that this ordinance was passed in accordance with the requirements of the Texas Open Meetings Act, and adopting a savings clause declaring an effective date and requiring delivery of this ordinance to the company and the ACSC's legal counsel. Mr. Hayes.
Thanks, Mayor. Council, this is an ordinance on first reading that, if adopted, will approve the 2017 settlement with Atmos Energy Corporation, which is known locally as Atmos Gas. They're the gas utility provider locally. The mayor will remember this as that this is basically a yearly function and a review and action that council is required to take. There's certainly a number of documents that were provided as part of the backup. And I also think that the recitals to the ordinance do a good job laying out the process and kind of where we're going and what we've done and the action that's involved here tonight, which is adoption of ordinance on first reading. Basically, whenever Atmos seeks a rate increase, they must provide notice to the city, which they've done, and we then have an opportunity to review and challenge the proposed rate increase. And we do that with respect to this rate increase through this Atmos Cities Steering Committee, which we're part of. It's approximately 170 cities in the Atmos area. And that group gets together, hires a consultant, hires legal counsel, and goes over the documentation and the evidence that Atmos provides that they believe supports their rate increase. So the process to review and negotiate the rate increases through this RRM tariff, which certainly sounds complicated, and I suppose is, but it is not as complicated as state law. And so it was originally adopted by the city group and Atmos as a kind of a less convoluted, simpler way, less costly way of reviewing the rate increases. I think both sides would agree. I was looking for Randy earlier. I don't know if he's here.
He was here. He's here.
Okay. Well, Atmos, I'm not speaking for Atmos, but I think Atmos would agree that the RRM process is simpler, and I would expect that the parties will get together later this summer and enter into a new long-term or a longer-term agreement to do the RRM process. So, regarding this year's rate increase, on March 1st of this year, Atmos made a filing requesting $46.4 million in additional revenues for the area that's covered by the city group. So that does not include the Dallas area. Dallas goes it alone, hires their own legal counsel and their own consultants. And then following this review, the city group and Atmos reached an agreement, which is reflected in this ordinance, which will reduce Atmos's request by $9.4 million, such that the ordinance approving new rates reflects an increase of $38.8 million. And so what does this mean locally? The monthly bill impact for the typical residential customer will be an increase of $2.04 a month, or about 3.87% increase, and the typical commercial customer will see an increase of $6.27 a month, and that's about a 2.37% increase. And so the city group, our legal consultant, our revenue consultants, gas consultants, all recommend approval of this ordinance on first reading. And it's a 2-reading process, and so I'll be back in June at the first meeting in June to bring it back to you.
Any questions by council? I did notice the effective date is June 1, even though we bring it back a second time.
It is, and you know, some cities have 1 reading ordinance, we have 2.
Right.
Some cities ignore it, and the gas rate goes into effect, and so it will be effective June 1.
Number 5 on page 2 of 3, the section requires the company to reimburse cities for reasonable rate-making costs associated with reviewing and processing the RM filing. Does that historically happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
That's pretty common with utility review. Consultants and attorneys get paid out of the proceeds or out of the, you know, the amount that's at play.
Okay. Any other questions or comments by council? Any by the audience? If not, I will ask for a motion to approve ordinance number 2017-13 on first reading.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Item number 5A is Kerrville-Kirk County Joint Airport Board's presentation of their 2017-2018 budget. Mr. Walter's on his way, not Mr. McKenzie. Okay.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Well, it's with great pleasure and pride that on behalf of your airport board and the airport manager and the airport staff that we present for consideration and your approval the airport's 2017-2018 operating budget, reflecting a revenue positive balance. And that's the first time that that's happened in, could be the history, but I'm going to go back at least maybe 10 years. And for those council members who may not be aware, about 7 years ago, the airport was operating on about a $500,000 negative operating budget. So we've come a long way, and it's been through the efforts with the airport and the manager, the staff, the city staff, and the county as well.
Yes, that's very, very exciting news, and I was at a number of those meetings being a member of the Airport Planning Committee this last year. Do you want to entertain just one question? I know you really do. On the terminal leases, the difference in 2017 and proposed, there's just a little downside there. Somebody didn't release in the terminal area?
Some of the leases, Mayor, are paid in advance. Some of them are paid monthly. Some of them are paid a year in advance. That's why you see it. It ebbs and flows year to year.
Okay.
I
Sorry,
had that
missed
exact same question to our manager when we first got the first draft of the budget as well. So, and it does, it's not, it's not necessarily constant, but, at the end, it all equals out.
Any questions or comments by council? How about from the audience? If not, this is an exciting day. We sure appreciate all the hard work. You've done an excellent job, Mr. McKenzie, to, I know, keep the expenses down and run a tight ship and keep things flowing like they should be. And Corey, thank you for being the new chair and serving the community as well. So with those kumbayas, I will ask for an approval of the Joint Airport Board's fiscal year 2017-18 budget. Motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
And we have 2 seconds. Take your pick. All in favor, please raise your hand. And motion carries 5-0. Thank both of you for taking time out to do the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. 5B is resolution number 16-2017, nominating a candidate to the Kerr Central Appraisal District Board of Directors in accordance with Section 603 of the Texas Tax Code. Don't know if Mr. McDaniel wanted to give us a presentation of why we are here, but the summary statement says that we had a resignation, Mr. Justin McDonald, and so this is a term that will actually just be completed. It will be serving through this approval through December the 31st of this year. We had 5 applications that Yes.
I move that we consider this an executive session.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? Just this particular item?
No, I think we have some other items for executive session, but this one, since there are multiple applicants, we can only choose one. I just think it's a little more gracious to do it.
Okay, there's a motion to move item 5B into executive session. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, would you raise your hand? All opposed? Okay, motion fails 2-3. So item number 5B would be to nominate a candidate to KCAD Board of Directors. We have had the applications in the file, have had a chance to review these and to call and ask questions as needed. All are qualified, according to Ms. Craig. Am I correct? Okay. This would be serving on the board, as I mentioned, through the end of the year.
Mayor, I move that we appoint Judy Eichner.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Ms. Eichner. Is there a second? Motion fails for
Yep.
lack of second.
Well, I'm in favor of Ms. Eichner.
I'm sorry?
I'm
You
in
second
favor
the
of Ms.
motion?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor? Raise your hand. All opposed? Motion fails 2-3.
Mayor, I move that we nominate William Morgan.
Okay. We have a motion to nominate Bill Morgan to KCAD Board of Directors. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a second. All in favor, please raise your hands. All opposed? Motion carries 3-2. Item number 5C is resolution number 19-2017, amending the City of Kerrville fee schedule by waiving the daily entrance fee for qualified disabled veterans at the city's Kerrville Shriner Park. And this is something Ashley will present. I was asked by a veteran of the community who's in charge of one of the local auxiliaries if we could consider this, because the state, as you will explain, I'm sure, does this as well. So, Ms. Boyle, would you please tell us what we're looking at here?
You bet. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This resolution, as the Mayor stated, would waive the day use fees for Kerrville Shriner Park. This is consistent with the state parks policy. The state park waives fees for veterans that qualify for this exemption based on 60% or more service-connected disability or loss of lower extremity. Kerrville Shriner Park is similar in nature to a state park, and the idea was to make it basically consistent with the state park system.
Okay.
I'll turn it back over to you for any questions.
Any questions by council? And again, this is just to be consistent with state law, and especially since this was at one time a state park.
State park policy.
Policy, yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll move adoption of the resolution.
Okay. We have a motion to adopt Resolution 19-2017. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Ashley. 6A, Budget and Economic Update for the period ending April 30th, 2017. Ms. Yarbrough.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Get my deal here. This is the budget update ending for April 30th. In the general fund for the month of April, we had $1,257,300. The year-to-date income was $21,569,226. The expenditures for the month of April was $2,511,082. Year-to-date was $16,435,873. In the water sewer fund for the month of April, we had $879,279 in revenue, with our year-to-date of being $6,437,992. Our expenditures for the month was $792,396, with our year-to-date of being $6,486,388. In the hotel motel fund, we had revenue of $131,828, with our year-to-date of being $636,836. We had no expenditures in the month of April. Under the economic update, Our community investment plan, it shows our major projects that are going on right now with their project budget, the expenditures during the month of April, the project-to-date expense, and the remaining project balances. And this is just for financial reporting. I don't have the status on the progress of the reports. At the bottom part, under development activities, we had 2 residential permits in the month of April and 63,888 of commercial permits, bringing our year-to-date of 27 new residential permits and value of commercial new and improvements of $13,985,838. Our housing has remained steady, our unemployment's steady, and our utilities are growing at a slow rate.
Any questions by council for Ms. Yarbrough? I think we're pretty close on schedule, right at the 50% mark, and we're about halfway through here, so that looks good on the top side. On the reuse system of the $6.3 million in expenditures, does that include the $3 million in design and the $2 million for the dirt that was moved over?
Yes, ma'am. Everything is there.
Okay. Any other questions by council? Any questions by the audience? If not, thank you very much for your report. Item number 6B is a street maintenance update, and I guess
Mayor,
Mr. Barron, you're going to do it?
I'll introduce that item while
Okay.
Stewart's working his way up.
Okay.
So this is a little bit different than what you may have seen in the recent past. We're going to try to incorporate into your meetings some just briefings about status of projects to share more information about where we are on different initiatives. So right now there's a document being passed down to you, a PowerPoint that Stewart's going to go through. In the future, we're going to make sure that you have this in your packet going out so that you have a chance to review it. We're not asking for any action today. This is basically just to bring you up to speed on where we are on, in this case, the streets program. And so after today, if you all want to share with me some thoughts about, any additional information that you want to see or maybe a different format as we tackle other topics, then please let me know. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stewart to present the report.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to give you an update on the City of Kerrville street master plan and maintenance schedule that we have. As we get, this started with a FUGRO report back in 2016. FUGRO came in and mapped all of our city streets. I say mapped, they drove 170 miles of our city streets, which is all of them, with a precise piece of equipment where we could document what condition each one of the streets are in. 4 of the key components within that piece of equipment, within that van that they drove around, were ground penetrating radar. They were able to look into the ground, find out how much base material was under the road in areas where we could see that far. The roughness of the roads, so they have a gyroscope in there where they drove over it and found out, logged how rough the road is, at least within their van, which as long as it's the same vehicle across all the roads, it was a good benchmark. They also monitored rutting, and they took videos of all the roads pointed down at the road surface itself. And from that video, they were able to find these items that are listed here on this report, where there were potholes. Guess I ought to bring the audience along as well. There we'll find the potholes, the bleeding asphalt, surface raveling, block cracking, alligator cracking, and edge cracking. All of that they compiled into a report and determined which street really was the best streets, or excuse me, the worst streets in town. And we were able to devise a plan to kind of get those get those maintenance practices started. Before we get into the maintenance practices, let's talk a little bit about streets themselves. You'll have to forgive me if it's a little elementary, but a street is made like a cake. The first layer is the native ground material. It's called the subgrade. And then above the subgrade comes a base layer, which in our area hopefully is limestone base. Right now, most of our streets have river gravel in it, is what they use for base. And then there was some aggregate or tack oil above that. In this slide, it's called binder. And then in the surface element is the surface course or asphalt. Not all of our streets are made equally. We have streets that are laid down right on top. They blade it off the grass and put it right on top of the dirt. And so depending on where you're at, obviously those streets don't last very long. Most of our streets, this slide calls for 2 inches of asphalt surface. We have a half inch in some places, up to 2 inches. Not very many places have more than 2 inches of hot mix asphalt over the top of it. So as the streets, as you can tell, the material that was mined out of the river, limestone base is what's used today. The material mined out of the river was gravelly and sand. It just doesn't compact very well, and when it gets wet, the subgrade shrinks and swells, causing cracking in the street. And so we have to go back in and fix those items. So the real thrust of the report is on the next slide. It's the goal of the pavement management is to apply the right treatment to the right pavement at the right time. That is the cornerstone of the whole report and the cornerstone of our street maintenance project. Streets wear out in different times, and there's no use spending a lot of money on a street that's not in very bad shape when you can get by with a fix that's going to have it last another 3 to 7 years with just minimal repair. And we'll get into those repair maintenances or the timing of when that maintenance should be applied. We wanted to develop an inventory of all of our streets, the 170 miles. We did that. They drove the truck over all of them. Collected consistent and complete accurate pavement data. That was part of the process. They gave that to us in a couple formats where we're able to determine what our path forward was with maintaining the street, monitoring the network to evaluate deterioration and the benefit of treatment. There again, how long the street, what condition they're in, how long are they going to last, and then trying to predict the future of how long is the asphalt really going to last here? Does it last like it does in other places, or is it deteriorating faster? So this study will be the benchmark that when we come back in 3 to 4 or 5 years, whatever that turns out to be, and we can measure it against that and see if the street's really deteriorating at the rate that we anticipate in this report, or they're deteriorating faster or slower. Do you have a question?
Are you pointing at me?
Yes, ma'am. I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm just.
I got one I'll ask just to be sure I know what alligator cracking is. I want to be able to avoid that. I presume it's a long, wiggly crack.
It looks like the scales on an alligator's back. They're usually
web. It's more of a
it's
network
kind of a web.
crack. You've
The
seen it.
smaller
You've
they
seen it.
are, you'll see them on the way home tonight. There's places that it happens.
Okay.
Usually, if you can envision a street moving up and down, maybe getting wet and dry,
Yep.
and it's getting tall, bigger and smaller, and the smaller the cracks are, the more intense that the damage is.
Yeah.
So you start out with big squares, and then it gets down into probably 1 inch cubes, and then
Okay.
those cubes start breaking out, and that's what causes potholing.
Okie doke. Thank you.
Okay.
And, just for, were you through? Were you
Oh,
through?
no, ma'am.
Oh, I didn't think so. Okay. Go
Okay.
right ahead.
Okay. On the next slide is kind of the cost-effective maintenance. There's the red line on this graph kind of shows the lifetime of the street. The x-axis is the number of years, and the y-axis is the good and poor relationship. So a street starts out in good shape, up in the top left-hand corner, and it's rolling along pretty good for 3 to maybe 5 years. And then some kind of preventative maintenance probably needs to happen to that street. Maybe some crack seal, maybe some slurry seal, depends on how it's holding up, what kind of material they used, how thick it was, how much water's running across it. Some kind of maintenance, some routine maintenance needs to happen on that street. If that goes on and it doesn't happen, then you get into the preventative maintenance, maybe a slurry seal. If that doesn't happen, or even if it does happen, some streets are still going to deteriorate. And you get down to where that rehabilitation, that might be an edge or a milling and overlay, or just an overlay, depending on where you're at in the city. And then the full depth reconstruction is when it totally fails, and you need to come in and regrade the base, recompact it, re-slope the road. Kind of tell y'all how the process that the street goes through in deterioration. Here's the same graph, a little bit different, a little bit better category maybe. As you see it in the bottom right-hand corner, as it starts down from good, a good street doesn't last as long as you think it will. And it comes off pretty quickly, and then it kind of plateaus in that satisfactory range for probably 5 to 8 years, somewhere in there. depending on a lot of different factors. I could give you a range from 3 to 8 years, I'll say. And then it falls off again. It falls off pretty quickly there, and that's where it talks about the $1 for rehabilitation here. If you wait much longer, I mean, if you wait another year or two, that street is going to fall off to maybe a $4 or $5 fix to get it back to a satisfactory level. And so what we're trying to do is stay ahead of that curve and spend less dollars on the streets that need repair. That'll take us a little bit further and make that street last a little longer instead of waiting for it to go to the full depth reconstruction and need the full depth of the repair. So how do we do that? The crack sealing is probably the most well, it is the most cost effective. There's no doubt industry wide. Crack sealing is the most cost effective method of keeping water out of the street. You've seen these on I-10. People have seen crack sealing everywhere. A lot of people call them snakes along the road. They look like different things. But all that is to do is to keep the water out of the subgrade. If the water penetrates the crack, it gets in and it causes the subgrade to get wet. Typically, that causes your subgrade to shrink or swell. That shrinking and swelling opens the crack more. The crack opens more, gets more water in there, and it causes more deeper damage. Why that is so important for the city of Kerrville is the city in years past has used our streets as gutters. And so all of the water, or not all of it, but a good portion of the water, anything that falls on somebody's residential lot is designed to come out into the street. Very few storm drains in the city of Kerrville, but that water is infiltrating our streets. And so as it gets in there, every time it rains, the more rain, the more water, the more damage to the street. We don't have very many storm drains here. It's something to consider. The way that crack sealing works, our contractor, this is a process that we do not do in-house. We prepare for it, but we do not do this process. He'll come in and blow out the cracks with high pressure air, get the dirt out of them. That leaves a little bit of a reservoir in there for the oil or the tar to sit in there. And as the street shrinks and swells with the heat of the summer or the cold of the winter, it allows it to adhere to the pavement, causing a good bond. If that crack's not quite right enough, or they're wider cracks, but they're rough in our spec that we just now have just completed. There's a provision in there for routing out the crack. If it's a small crack, it can be too small where you can't get the tar down into the crack, and they actually go in and open it up a little bit. That allows that material to get through into the crack, have some volume in there, and then it can, as the street shrinks and expands, it can shrink and expand, take up that space. Yes,
sure. Our handout inside, and correct me if maybe this was incorrectly put, but it said crack seal is sometimes performed by a contractor and sometimes by the city street division. Is that not right? We don't ever.
In years past, the street department used a cold mix crack seal. We have stopped that practice. That's not a good method for crack sealing. The standard is that we heat it up and it's able to go in there. It's more like a tar substance, or maybe not. Tar is probably not it, but a rubbery type substance, and you have to heat it up to get that elasticity. So we have done it in the past, but we're not doing it anymore. However, the street department does do all the preparation work for the contractor before they get here, and we'll talk more about what that preparation is. Now, the last thing that the contractor will do is on this crack sealing is they'll put sand in them. If the cracks are too big, they blow them out to get a good bed in there, and then they put sand in the bottom of it to bring it up so they don't waste the material, and we just get the sealer close to the surface of the road. The next treatment type is called slurry seal. You probably have seen this within the last 2 weeks. We've been out in the street, or our contractor's been out in the street putting out slurry seal. This particular method uses a pug mill, and it's a pug mill on wheels. Basically, it's a truck that has a sand reservoir on the back that's properly sized. We also have them using a rock from Uvalde that we like here. It actually holds up a little better. The sand comes off the truck. It's got an emulsion. It mixes that together on the truck, and then it puts it down and it squeegees it out. That leaves a very nice surface, a smooth-looking surface. It's nice and black, and it also has a little bit. It's about, we put it down about a 1/4 inch thick, and so as that, it doesn't do much for bumps and humps and things of that nature, but it does give a little bit more stabilization to the road, and it does cover up all the small cracks that are not really flexing very much. If it's a large crack and it flexes a whole lot, it will reflect through this slurry seal. It takes a couple hours to dry, and so it's just a matter of a few hours before the citizens can get back onto the street.
And this is what we've been seeing around town by the mountain slurry seal group, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I
Yeah,
ask
that. Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question about that? Because I've been getting questions from people. I'm not questioning. What's the reasoning behind doing it in sections all over the place instead of like one long section?
Okay, I get that question a lot. The reason that is Fugro's study, when they did it, is they went from intersection to intersection. It's in an effort not to double count the intersections. So every one of our streets was broken into a block section instead of a street section. And that's the only way to prevent double counting the intersections. Otherwise, as you go down Jefferson, you're gonna count Clay Street, and you have that same footage on both of your two maps. And so the answer to that is it's strictly so we don't count intersections.
Okay.
But good question. I do get that a lot. I'm sorry I didn't answer that for you. Overlays, and I can read, if you'd like for me to read the whole slide, I can do that as well, but just giving you a little bit more background information that's not easily covered on the slide. An overlay is it's just that somebody where as a road starts to become rutted or raveled, we go in and clean it up. This is a process that's done inside the City of Kerrville Street Department. This is something we do all on our own with no outside contractor. They'll come in. This overlays are only where you don't have curbs and gutters. And so you'll see this sometimes on some TxDOT roads where they come in. You see a paving machine out there, and they're coming in and putting in another 1 inch or 2 inches of hot mix. That's called an overlay. They just put a tack oil down so it will adhere to the existing pavement, and put an overlay over the top of it. That gives you a little bit more life than obviously more life than the slurry seal. It gives you a lot more thickness, makes the road maintain better. If you do have big cracks in your original asphalt or the parent material, it will reflect up sometimes through this, just depending on how thick you put it on. There's some cost associated with that. It's the third most expensive treatment method that we use. We'll only use it on streets that don't have gutters on them or curbs. Mill and overlay is almost the same thing as an overlay, except we mill it out on each side of the street up next to the gutter. We'll bring in a milling machine, our own milling machine. We have it in-house. Fits on the front of a Bobcat. Mills about a 2-foot wide section along the curb towards the crown of the road. We take it down about 2 inches on the deeper side next to the curb, and then it tapers out to about 3/4 of an inch up closer to the crown of the road. And we're able to go in and do the whole overlay then. The crown of the road comes up. We put another inch over the whole top of the road, and then the flow line of our gutter is still the same. And so we didn't elevate the top of the street any. It still flows into the gutter. There's no tripping hazards. There's no wheelchair hazards or anything like that. So the mill and overlay is something that we do in-house as well.
What do y'all do with the material y'all mill? Do y'all dispose of that, or do we reuse it?
We use it as much as we can. It's typically not back into the same street, but we'll use it in other areas on other streets. Pavement reconstruction. This is a full depth pavement. This method is the most expensive by far, most time consuming, and it's something that we do in house. It's another. Am I behind? 2-0. This is another process that we do in house. What we'll do here is we have a milling machine. It's a larger milling machine than the one that I just told you about. That does kind of fine mill work where we're looking to get certain depth. This particular milling machine goes on the front of a large loader, It mills out the old asphalt. We can also use it to mill up the old base if there's any base under these roads. Most of these roads don't have any base under it. We mill up the asphalt and down through an inch or two of river gravel, and then we're back down. We're down to the subgrade already. So we haul that off if we need to. If we need it to shape the road, we'll blade it over to the side, rework the subgrade to make it where there's no rutting in the street, and that the crown is where it needs to be to kind of get the water off of both sides, and then we'll put that base back down. Typically, most of the roads that have failed don't have good base material, so we have to haul it all off. And that's part of the reason they're failing. I mean, they weren't built to that standard originally. So that particular fix, though it's the most expensive and it takes the most time to do it, it also lasts the longest. So here we'll break it down a little bit within those those 4 repair methods. Give you a little bit more detail about each one of them. Crack sealing is we've gone through it. I hope you understand how that works. The responsibility of the crack seal, the city street department does the preparation work for that, and I'll go into a little more detail what all that preparation work is for the crack sealing, and then we hire a contractor to do that work for us. That cost to us right now is about $1.30 a square yard. Slurry seal is the same process. Our street department comes in, we do the preparation for the contractor, he comes in and does the work. They charge us about $5.35 a square yard to have that work done. The reason that this next item is in white is it was not in the Few Grow study. This is something that we've in-house have noticed, and we think it's going to work better. It's putting down the crack seal first and then slurry sealing over the top of that. We've noticed over a year and a half ago when we did the slurry seal that it's covering really well and it's adhering and it's staying there. But all the cracks that were down below are just coming through to the surface. And we're worried about that water getting in the subgrade. So as inexpensive as crack sealing is, we decided to try it. And our plan is to try it this year and see how that works. We hopefully get a good seal on all those cracks, so even if it reflects through to the top, the water can't get into the original crack.
Do we time it to where we do that just before they come in and do the slurry seal? You time that?
Well, the crack seal needs to be done in the wintertime. Ideally is done in the winter. You can do it whenever, but ideally it's done in the wintertime. And the reason you do that is because that's when the crack is the widest. So everything's kind of shrunken up and it's able to get in there. They heat up the sealant, and so it's already hot. It applies real well. But it doesn't, it has a little bit of that reservoir that I told you about earlier. You can do them in the summertime. TxDOT does them in the summertime. It's just a little bit better if you do it in the wintertime. The slurry seal can't be done in the wintertime. It needs to be done in the summertime. And so our game plan is to crack seal everything in the winter, slurry seal in the spring or in the fall. Not so much in the summer for the slurry seal. And the reason for that is our contractor is a large contractor. There's no small ones really around that do that kind of work. We're kind of a small fish in a big pond. And so if we can get in on either end of his paving season, it saves us money than to try to hit it right in the middle of the summer. And so we're juggling a little bit there to kind of get the most bang for our buck there as well. The patch and the full depth overlay, both of those activities are done by our street department. It's costing us about $8.25 a square yard. That is strictly a materials cost. There's no labor involved in that, no equipment cost, no diesel, just the equipment that goes, just the material that goes down on the street. The cost, if we had a contractor do it, would be about $20 a square yard. Pavement reconstruction, similar to the patch mill and overlay. This activity is done by the City of Kerrville Street Department. The cost to the city is roughly $6 a square yard. If we had a contractor come in and do that, they'd charge us about $60 a yard to do it. So there's some savings there by having our own staff doing that. Okay, so the repair schedule, we'll talk a little bit about schedule now and kind of tell y'all where we're at, what we've completed as of last year, and then where we're at this year. Last year was considered year one, and you'll see up there that, let me tell you what the city does, because it's the second column there for the preparation. For preparation for slurry seal and crack seal is outlined on the bottom of this slide. And what we do is we fix the potholes. Everybody's seen a pothole. You would think it'd be easy to fix, just go throw some material in it. But if you actually fix them properly, you dig it out just a little bit so it's not round in the bottom, it's kind of square. Guys try to do that if there's time. If the street's just covered in traffic, sometimes that's hard to do. But you don't want it, you can't leave it flat across the top, because as it settles, as the cars start driving over it, it's going to compact in. So you got to leave it up a little bit. It's more of a process than what you think is the story there. We apply level up. Level up is that black material you see typically on county roads to kind of get the corners squared again, and also getting the patches and things back so there's not a big bump in the road. It's just cold mix. Trim trees, we have a standard of about 14 feet that we try to keep our trees trimmed at, but not always. On some of these streets, there's some areas that kind of get away from us, so we'll go in and trim all those trees. We sweep everything before the contractors get here, and then we do the repair patches. A lot of time we have a lot of utility cuts in the city, be it from the water or sewer department or also Atmos Gas. They go back in and pull those out. And if needed, if the patch is too bad, and then they'll repatch it, or they'll put the level up over the top of it and try to get it where it's
That's a question I had. Have we, on this scheduling, have we planned for any infrastructure updates? Has that been in the scheduling plan, or is that
for what, sir?
For doing redoing the streets, like say we have to redo a sewer main or a sewer line. Has
Yes,
that
sir.
been any of the planning on
For
scheduling for the streets? What streets we do first?
Yes, yeah, we have a plan in here as to what streets, what the maintenance method is, and when we're going to get there. As far as adding additional streets, not at this time, no, sir.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes,
So
yes, sir.
You have put that in the plan.
Yes, it's in the plan. Every now and again, it does get overlooked. There's a section of street right now that got overlooked on this last one, unfortunately. But yes, we do notify all of our superintendents and say, guys, is there any future work that's going to happen on these streets? And we give them the list, tell them where they're at, have them go out, check everything, look for water leaks, look for erosion or things that might be happening in the sewer line. But we have very little control over Atmos or things of that nature when they come to town. Matter of fact, unless we need them to lower something, they don't even answer our call. So sweeping, repairing, patching, and then point repair. Point repair is, Mr. Ferguson was asking earlier about alligatoring. If we find a place that has significant alligatoring, we'll actually go out with a saw, cut that piece out, excavate all that material, put back in base material, compact that base material, and then put asphalt over the top of it. All that has to happen, or the slurry seal when they come to town isn't going to look very good. It's going to fall apart immediately in those sections. So that's the piece that the city does on each one of the slurry seal and crack seal streets. So I'll go back up and give you a little bit of the schedule now. So in year one, 2016, the city street department completed all of those those preparations for slurry seal, crack seal. They did all their mill and overlay work, but they didn't quite get done with the reconstruction. The reconstruction streets, we're still working on some 2016 streets as it is right now. And so we did not complete that. On the contractor's task, the contractor, the slurry seal contractor, we went out to bid for the slurry seal, and they contacted us towards the end of the year last year, and they couldn't get the material they needed to slurry seal with. It took a special kind of rock, and their supplier was out of it, and they were going to be out of it for the season. I talked to you earlier and said slurry seal is something you can't do in the wintertime. We waited to get that a little bit better deal towards the end of the season. Well, when their supplier couldn't supply, it pushed us too far into the winter. We just finished that about a week ago. All of the 2016 streets, we brought them back in. That was part of his agreement, is he'd come back in the spring, late spring, early summer, right when it happened. and finish those streets for us. So that has been completed. The crack seal, we had to develop a spec to put out crack seal. We talked about routering out those grooves and blowing the dirt out of the cracks and adding sand and so on in the reservoirs. That standard has now been set. We're reviewing it, and we're going to be out to bid next couple of weeks, probably for the crack seal. So that brings us forward to 2017. We've talked a little bit about 2017 already. The slurry seal, the first one has already been done, the 2016, year 1 2000 crack seal. That's the spec I was just telling you about. We're going to combine those two, I think is the plan. We're combining the 2016 and 2017 crack seal. And then the slurry seal, that contractor will come back later and install the slurry seal over the crack seal streets. Once again, the city street department will do all that preparation work. Matter of fact, all of it's been done for the 2017 streets. And now they are doing the mill and overlay. On the next slide, we'll see that in this ongoing construction reconstruction for the full depth reconstruction. The dollar amounts are on the right-hand side, and kind of the schedule there is next to the budget. The next slide shows you the slurry seal streets that were going to be slurry sealed and crack sealed. I didn't want to put 8 pages up there. There's a lot of streets. It's in your handout. It's also available on the website. More than happy to walk anybody through that would like to, but that's there. You may see on some of those streets the same street listed 3 or 4 times. The reason for that is what Mr. BAROODY said earlier, is it's still labeled, like you'll see in this mill and overlay section in the bottom. Things left to do is Lowest Street North is on there 3 times. It doesn't look too smart, but what that is different sections of that road, different blocks of that same road. If you go on our website and look, you'll see the detail on that on the spreadsheet, and you'll be able to tell exactly where those are. So the crack seal is available there in your agenda packet or online. The mill and overlay, street department's doing a really good job. They're keeping up with that. The first section there is the streets that we have milled and overlaid already this year, and we're on task to complete all of them. The second section there in 2017 is the mill and overlay for the second half of our paving season. These are the reconstruction streets. These are the most expensive, time-consuming streets that we talked about earlier. First section includes all of the 2016 and 2017 streets that we've done thus far. The second section is the 2016 ongoing, and then below that is the 2017 ongoing. Are we going to make it all the way to the end of the streets? I think we're going to run out of man hours before we run out of streets on this project. So we're working on it, but and one that's not listed on there is Hayes Park, and we spent a lot of time in the park last year getting all that ready under the bridge and everything as the park was coming online. That renovation that took a couple weeks to kind of get that squared away and get that paved. So the budget analysis. This is a slide out of the Fugro report. What this shows council is that the condition index, the pavement condition index on the left on the y-axis, and then the years on the right. And then the rate of spending that you have to allow for your pavement index to either go up, stay the same, or come down depending on what you want to do. The blue line, the first one, is no funding at all, the one that kind of holds steady at 16 and then starts falling down at 17, 18, 19, and 20. The green line is $500,000 a year investment in the streets. Still the pavement PCI is coming down every year at $500,000. At $1 million, it holds steady. It holds steady at about a 60. And then at $1.25 million, it comes up, and at $1.5 million, it comes up even faster. So that's kind of that was just kind of the end of the report as to where where council wanted to be. And council gave us some direction that they wanted to increase the pavement index. And I can't remember how it was a ratcheted time that we had to do them, and they were going to fund us accordingly. So we'll talk about the budget next. So our budget last year, the contractor didn't come to town as we talked about, and so that left us with about $643,840 left in last year's pavement. This year we are going to use that. The first slurry seal, the $181,000, is what the contractor just billed us for to do the slurry seal that for the last 2 weeks. We just got that bill in the mail, so that money is going to be spent. The crack seal is going out to bid in the next couple of weeks. We anticipate having that out and out on the market, and hopefully we feel confident. We've talked to the design engineer. He thinks that our numbers are good. He thinks that's where we need to be. And we've used that to calculate year 2 slurry seal and year 2 crack seal as well. And then the mill and overlay, we're on track to finish all of our mill and overlay this year at $200,000, and then we'll use $210,000 to do the reconstruction. And that reconstruction is a combination of 16 and 17. We don't anticipate that we'll get it all done for that, but if we do run out of man hours with that volume of expenditure. So, to wind up, some of the key points here of the presentation is that here again, it's important to form the right treatment at the right time on the right road. That's the most bang for our bucks. Fixed roads in the early stages of deterioration is much more cost effective. We talked about that and what that process looks like. Slurry seal, effective treatment and when to use on roads before they get heavily deteriorated. Keep up the progress on heavily deteriorated streets. That's the edge milling and overlaying, and also the full depth reconstruction. The 2018 pavement season, we anticipate having a little bit more mill and overlay work than what we've done in this year. And the update to the Fugro plan should be considered after the 2018 paving season. And what some of the points that we would ask Fugro or that consultant to look at was there again what Mr. Baroody had talked about, the block-to-block sections. We know now that it's a lot more cost-effective for when our contractors come to town to have them on one section of street. Right. Keep them in one general area and do as much as you can. That being said, it's also more cost-effective for us to hire a slurry seal contractor 1 year and then an edge mill and overlay contractor the next year in full depth reconstruction or whatever that series is. Spend a larger section of money with one contractor instead of spreading it out amongst 4, because now you get people that are more in the business, you get their attention. They know that something's, that there's a big project coming up. So that would be something that we would consider in that report too, to kind of how we present that to council and how we get that information from the consultant. We also want to make sure that the deterioration rate is about right, that their assumptions in that report are actually as fast as our streets are deteriorating or not. Do we need to up our spending, or can we relax it a little bit? How fast are the streets truly deteriorating? Until we've had this benchmark, we haven't been able to know exactly what that deterioration rate is. And then just the update of the streets. How much work have we done? Is our pavement index score coming up or not? So with that, I'll take questions.
During our budget workshop last year, and of course, we were trying to do 2 things. We were trying to decrease the rate of deterioration. This plan we adopted actually increased it some, but not as much as it would have been had we not spent what we agreed to do. And then again, by 2020, we were trying to get 62%, it says here, of Kerrville streets to rank a 70 or better by 2020. And so, again, there were variables, as you mentioned, that we don't know how to predict, and that is weather, amount of traffic, all that affects how long our fixes work.
Right, yes, ma'am.
So are you saying that we would actually bring Fugro back in to do that? Okay. not in-house?
Yeah, we would, I don't know if it's Fugro, we'd probably go out and see their, Fugro, when we did it, was the only consultant that was doing this kind of work at the time. I've noticed now that there's some other people kind of taking interest in that field. So we would look around and see, do we go with Fugro or another contractor?
So get through 3 years of this and
3
then
years.
go back and recalibrate, see where we are.
See what we are, yeah. That was my question. Any other questions by council? By the audience?
Mayor, I have a question. Stuart, this is for you. Bruce Spradling, 1725 Foothills. I'm curious, you mentioned that the streets are done from intersection to intersection. What do you do where the intersection is the worst part of the street? The street is pretty good, the intersection is pitiful.
And we've talked about that. I know the one you're probably referring to.
So what they looked at is they looked at the feeder roads versus the collector roads versus the arterial roads. The more predominant street is the one that got credit for the intersections as well. And so let's say Water Street, you have G Street and Water Street. Water Street is a more predominant road, gets more traffic than G Street does. And so Water Street got all of the credit for the intersections as well. But as G Street came, it came and stopped at the intersection. It didn't make it across Water Street for both sides. So you have two sections of G Street.
Then you do what needs to be done in that intersection, even if it's more than what the street needs when you do it?
Depends on what that street is. Yes, ma'am.
The intersection probably needs to be completely rebuilt in some cases.
There are areas that need that.
The street is not all that bad.
Right.
So what you would do is you would do that intersection when you do that street, the streets that comes to that intersection, right?
Yes.
But you would use a different technique in repairing the intersection than you would the street.
If it calls for a different technique, it's different contractors are, like we talked about earlier, different contractors are needed for different things. Typically, most of the intersection work that are in the condition that you're talking about is something the street department does. And so we would be looking at doing those. Right. And so we would stop the slurry seal back from the intersection. So as we come through, we do the intersection and then we tie back into to the edge of the slurry seal.
And I think some of the things, and we can have a workshop on this sometime again for update if we need to, but there was a particular four-way intersection by Tally School that continually needs potholes and maintenance because you have traffic coming to take children to school and perhaps there are others around town. They're continually stopping, starting. And some of those, I don't know, our street plan didn't have any reference to a concrete type fix, you know, in those kind of areas. In other words, there's another corner too that I noticed our street crew is at quite often because the water runs around the hill and it will automatically take all the asphalt out between the curb and the road. And so we're always back in there filling, you know, when we have rains. And so I don't know if this is what Ms. Spradling is referring to, but we didn't have that in our study at all when we did the street plan.
Right. We didn't address curbs in the plan, and we also didn't have any concrete as fixes within the plan. That's something that we could consider next time when we look at it, but the existing plan doesn't have that. Singing Wind is one that we've done recently where we did it. We replaced it all with concrete, not the street, but just the intersection. That was about a $40,000 fix to fix that intersection in Singing Wind. But it gets a lot of water right there and a lot of traffic, and that between the water and the traffic, it's hard on those intersections.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments by council or anyone?
Well, so Stuart, the concrete work that you did, that fit into the street budget, or is that?
We haven't discussed
extra.
The concrete work that we did came out of the streets budget. It wasn't slotted in the street for concrete work, but we felt that for that intersection, that was the fix that was needed that would last.
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be good to include in the plan updates from now. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barron. Item number 7A is appointments to the City of Kerrville, Texas Economic Improvement Corporation. Ms. Craig?
Mayor and City Council, we have 4 terms that expire on June 1st, 2017. And 3 of those terms are typically appointments that council makes of citizens. We also have 1 position that is currently held by Councilmember Summerlin. We have 6 applications on file from persons who meet the minimum qualifications for this board. Mr. Cochran is the chairman of that board. He has served his 2 terms and therefore is termed out. The remaining 3 members, Delane Seigerman, Paul Stafford, and Mary Ellen Summerlin, are eligible for reappointment. This item is also, as well as items 8A through 8D, are all posted for both regular session and executive session, however council desires.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we begin any kind of discussion, do we have a motion? I'm comfortable with discussing in open, but I'll consider a motion.
I move that we move to executive session with this to executive session.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of second. So at this point, we have each received the applications in our packets for review and potential interview. As Ms. Craig has said, everyone meets the qualifications that she has read that's in our packets. There are 4 open positions. Are there any questions or discussion about any of these by council?
It's been our custom, since I've been on council, not all that long, to reappoint citizens who reapply, who have served us well in the past. So I would go ahead and move that we reappoint Paul Stafford and Delane Seigerman, since they both reapplied and have another term to serve.
Okay, we have 1 speaker who, I'll go ahead, since it's a little out of order, but since you've made a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Now I'll ask for discussion. I do have 1 person who wishes to speak on this item, Delane Seigerman.
Thank you, Mayor. Delane Seigerman, 4000 Comanche Trace Drive. It's been my privilege and my pleasure to be on the EIC board. Actually, the mayor was the one who suggested I try to go for this opportunity several years ago, and I have not regretted 1 moment. It's enlightened me so much to all the possibilities that Kerrville can present to our residences, from everything from recreation to buildings and improvements that are educational. I have tried to do everything I possibly could. I have attended tours. I've attended special meetings to brainstorm. I've attended the grand openings of the Callow Theater and Support Facility, the River Trail, which I use almost every weekend, refurbishing of the Steinway piano at the Callow. I've toured the under construction athletic sports complex in the rain with the wind chill factor of about 32 with a hard hat. But we also recently toured the under construction, ready for something to happen, Arcadia Theater. And I'm curious and anxious to see something exciting happen downtown. So that's just a few of the things that I have really taken to heart and tried to work hard to do research and do on-site checking, and I really would love to be reappointed. It would really be a passion of mine to serve again. So if you could reconsider that, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Delane. Anybody else from the audience who wish to speak? Or any other questions or discussion by council? If not, we have a motion and we have a second for 2. Is that what you said?
Yes, the 2 who have served 1 term and are eligible for a 2nd term.
Okay.
They are Paul Stafford and Delane Seigerman.
Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Motion fails 2-3. I would entertain a motion from council for
Mayor,
alternate.
I move to appoint George Baroody, Gary Cooper, Robert Naiman, and Paul Stafford.
Okay, we have a motion for Paul Stafford, George Baroody, Robert Naiman.
Robert Naiman and Gary Cooper.
And Gary Cooper. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. All in favor, please raise your hand. A 5? Is that 5?
Yep.
0. Thank you very much.
Was that 5 to 0?
Yes. But it looked like it.
Well, there's
It
only.
was a little slow, but it looked like it.
There's only 5 of us.
Okay. Item number 8A is Kerrville City Account appointments to the Airport Planning Committee. This is a committee of 2 that serves as representatives from City Council to attend the airport board meetings. They are non-voting positions, but they are there to meet with the airport board when they have special planning sessions, and they also are asked, and not required, but asked to attend all of the airport board meetings. Those meetings are on the 4th Wednesday mornings, I believe, for council, in case you want to think about that before you make any motion here. They were currently served this position by myself, Bonnie White and Glenn Andrew. So both of these positions we will need to consider for appointment. Are there any questions about what it entails or what needs to be done? If not, I would consider appointments to the 2 appointments to the Airport Planning Committee. I would like to nominate Warren Ferguson because of his background in aerospace engineering. I think he would be a good fit. And Mr. Vogel had expressed an interest earlier in doing that. I can make an motion, or we can have it amended. I would move that Mr. Ferguson and Mr. Vogel be appointed to the Airport Planning Committee.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Council. Item number 8B is appointment to the Kerrville Economic Development Corporation. This position is for the city liaison to the Board of Directors for KEDC. Currently has been served the last 2 years by Councilman Fine, so that will necessarily need to be reappointed this evening. Currently in our packet, I think there were some corrections, Council. Mr. Troxel is no longer the representative from KISD. Of course, it's Dr. Faust. I believe Mr. Jones is not there either. I believe that's Walt Koenig. Okay, so that hadn't been correct, the current president. So other than that, are there any questions, or are there any motions for city appointment to KEDC?
Mayor, I move to appoint Bonnie White mayor to KEDC.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, there's a motion and there's a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Item number 8C is the Kerrville City Council appointment to Playhouse 2000 Board of Directors. And again, this is a council liaison position to the currently serving Playhouse 2000 Board. This was also served by Councilman Fine, and so will need to be reappointed. I would entertain a motion for an appointment to Playhouse 2000 Board of Directors.
Mayor, I move that we nominate Vincent Vogel for Playhouse 2000.
Okay, I know he had mentioned someone on the board had asked that he would consider that. Any discussion? There's a motion. I'll second the motion. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. And I'm sorry, I don't know when those meetings are, so you'll have to figure that out. Item number 8D is the Kerrville City Council appointments to the Recovery Community Coalition from Council. This was presently, or most recently served by Glenn Andrew and Stephen Fine. There are 2 positions that need to be filled by our board policy from Council to the Recovery Community Coalition. Any questions or comments or discussion or nominations? Anybody interested in it?
I'd be glad to serve.
Okay. I'd be happy to nominate Ms. Summerlin. Anyone else? Mr. Vogel, you said
I'd be happy to serve also.
you had said something yesterday, I believe. Councilman, if there's no more discussion, then I will move that we appoint Vince Vogel and Mary Ellen Summerlin to the
Second.
Recovery Committee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 9 is City Manager's Report. This is a new item that Mr. McDaniel has asked to present to us. We're happy to hear you.
Thank you, Mayor. Of course, this is not for discussion, but just a quick update. We'll have to post it if you all want to discuss any of these items for your next meeting. But just briefly, first of all, thank you so much, all of you, for your time and all your participation yesterday at your retreat all day long. I think we got a lot of good work done. Yes. I know it was very helpful for the staff, me in particular being new, to hear from all of you and what your priorities are as we move forward. Along those same lines, I'm going to ask EA to pass this down to you. This is your revised budget calendar that reflects the council's decision to go ahead and open up to 2 workshops the next 2 months. And of course, you have your regular meetings over the budget in August and September. But these would be set up for June and July, as we discussed, and we'll share those with the community as well as far as those specific dates and times. In addition to that, I went ahead and took liberty to add your new monthly work session, which will begin in August, every Wednesday, that third Tuesday. So an off week from your regular meetings. And then that will include a discussion around various topics as you all decide, and we'll map that out for about 6 months beginning in August and moving forward. Again, that just reflects what we discussed. If there are questions about that, I'd be happy to answer those. In addition to that, just so you all are aware, in the new soccer fields at the new athletic field complex, all the seating is now complete ahead of the rains, which has been very good. Then also on the baseball fields, we anticipate the sod coming in beginning tomorrow. So we're moving along with that project. And then finally, as follow-up to your retreat, we'll be documenting all the work that was done by the council, putting that together in kind of key focus areas as well as key performance indicators around the goals that you set, and then fleshing that out with specific activities and who's responsible for what. And I see that really as the beginning of our strategic plan. So we'll flesh that out as a draft, get it to you for review and comment and any adjustments that you all see fit. But again, appreciate all the work that you all did yesterday. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for hosting it. Yes, it was a good retreat. Any questions for Mr. McDaniel or comments or changes that may need to make? And I guess we can always respond to that as we have conflicts. Hopefully we won't. Item number 10 is the Visitors and Citizens Forum. I didn't have any request forms. Was there anybody who wished to speak? Sorry. That's okay. I know who you are.
Bruce Strakey, 821 Earl Garrett. I missed the last council meeting. I'm very sorry. I missed it to see all the new members. And one of the things I wanted to comment about is how exciting it is to see change through the city. And it's always a fun adventure to see how things change and grow and all. And as we look back on changes that have happened in the city, I had a chance to do some traveling with my dad in Europe this last 2 weeks, which was a great honor to spend that time with my dad. But one of the things I noticed in every one of the cities I went into was the combination of public spaces and walking trails and walkability. In every one of the cities I went to and visited had a river trail in it that tied into those public spaces. And we have that here. Past councils have done that. And I know you all will be looking on ways to expand on that. And it's so fun to see the interaction in these cities of the people and vendors and have that opportunity for interaction and enjoying our spaces. And here in the Hill Country, what a great place to live. So I'm excited about the changes coming and see what's all here. Thank you all for your service.
And to have your father, how special is that?
Oh, a trip of a lifetime. Thank you so much.
I didn't get my postcard, Bruce. Thank you so much. Item number 11 is items for future agendas. We talked about a number of them at the retreat that he referred to. Would any council members like for Mr. McDaniel to consider us future agenda items, other than the ones we discussed yesterday? Our members of the audience, we're fairly well covered. We have our work cut out for us as it is, I think. So, okay. Item number 12 is executive session, and under section 551071, item number 12A, I would like to move that we enter into executive session to discuss item number 12A with our legal counsel, Mr. Hayes, and our city manager, Mr. McDaniel, and our chief of police, Knight. That's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries 5-0. And thank you for those who have come at 7:31. We will enter into our executive or closed session, and we will be back someday. You're welcome to stay. Let the record show that council is out of executive session at 9:34. Item number 13 is action on item discussed in executive session. Before I say that, there was no action taken in executive session, City Secretary. Item 13 is action on item discussed in executive session. Is there any motion for any action by council? Seeing none, we will adjourn at 9:34.41.